Hello, everyone. This is Amanda Coulong with This Week in Cloud Computing, episode 29. Today, we will learn about the opportunities that exist when open source and the cloud converge. Everybody, and welcome back from a long Labor Day weekend. I'm your host, Amanda Coulong, with This Week in Cloud Computing, episode 29 already. I also have on Skype my trusty co-host, Dave Linthicum, who was drinking out of a really funny mug moments ago. How are you, Dave?
SpongeBob SquarePants, baby. SpongeBob SquarePants.
Please tell me you have children, please.
He's the man. No, it's mine. Come on.
Oh, okay. It's okay to maintain childlike behavior. Mm-hmm.
I'm counting on it.
Well, everyone knows I'm a goof, too, so you're in good company here. We have joining us today as well on the line Marten Mickos, the CEO of Eucalyptus Systems. How are you today, Marten?
Hi, Amanda. I'm good. Good to be here as your guest today.
Great. Excellent having you. We've got a few quick network updates I'd like to discuss before we get into the chat. The Web TV prom is September 22nd. I know we keep talking about this here on the show, but it's really near and dear to thisweekend.com. We're highly involved with it. We're live streaming it. And the theme is enchantment under the web, and everything goes to a good cause. All proceeds are benefiting the LA nonprofit Our House. I'll make sure you guys get the link for that. So if you're in LA or near LA, I highly recommend that you go because you might meet me and a few other amazing people at thisweekend.com. If you want to participate with This Week in Cloud Computing, you can join us via Twitter. That's at TWICloudComp, and use the hashtag TWICC. That means that I can find all of your comments. Of course, you can also join us here in the chat room. We have a feisty crowd today and love the chat, so make sure you join us here in the chat room as well. And you can like us on Facebook and also look at all of our past videos on thisweekend.com or on YouTube. And please rate our show. Let us know what you think. Want to give a quick shout out to our amazing sponsors. This Week in Cloud Computing is brought to you by Verticore, Storm on Demand, and NetDNA. That's at Verticore, at Storm on Demand, and at NetDNA CDN. So they are what makes the show possible and many other shows on this network. So make sure that you're tweeting out thanks to our sponsors, pound TWICC. So without further ado, let's jump into a quick sponsor break because I think there are some storm clouds a-brewing here in the studio.
Shield Maiden!
Yes?
Ragnarok is upon us once again!
Who's that?
Oh, never mind. Just go with it.
Okay.
Storm! Storm on Demand! Storm on Demand! Storm on Demand is an infrastructure as a service, more cloud computing platform that is powerful enough to replace dedicated servers. A proprietary cloud platform designed by Liquid Web, one of the largest web hosting providers with over 12 years of experience. It is easier to use and less expensive than Amazon EC2. Features include server setup in minutes, easy scaling, backup and restoration capabilities, and pay-as-you-go utility-style billing. Options include cPanel, Fantastico, Ubuntu, Debian, CentOS, fully managed servers, private networking, and swords like this, and little guys that we do not have in this commercial, but it doesn't matter, because this is cooler. Storm on Demand can be found at stormondemand.com, at Storm on Demand. Ragnarok be damned. Storm on Demand. If you do not get Storm on Demand, I will come to your house with my sword and make you get it.
Oh, that's storm clouds really making me chilly and sneezy in here. If you would like, we have an exclusive offer for This Week in Cloud Computing viewers. If you go to stormondemand.com/TWICC, you can sign up for over a month of free hosting. So definitely take advantage of that offer. And now we have some news. So So we still have quite a bit of news coming out of VMworld, obviously, and given the long weekend, I think that's probably what we're going to focus on for the majority of the news today. Let's start off with top story. There was some new survey data coming out of VMworld that suggests that the number of IT organizations planning on building their own private clouds is probably a lot higher than most people think. So 34% have already implemented a private cloud platform, and then an additional 23% are thinking about doing so within the next 12 months. And then it's also kind of speculated that many IT organizations are going to cobble together their own private clouds with existing resources rather than going with an outside provider. So, Dave, what are your thoughts on this one?
I'm surprised it's not 100% being a survey done at VMworld.
I know.
A lot of it, everybody is moving in this direction. And if they're looking at cloud computing, this is in essence the first step. And that's clear now. So I think the jury was out on private clouds. Everybody's interested in it. They're moving in that direction. And so ultimately, we're going to see this as an increasing trend. Next year, it's going to be more. And even the year after that, it's going to be more. What would be interesting to me is what their definition of a private cloud is. If it's just virtualization, or if it's, multi-tenancy and chargebacks and auto provisioning and all the things that I consider to be really part of a private cloud stack. So they didn't ask that in the survey, but I suspect that most of those folks are basically interested in doing virtualization and calling virtualization a private cloud. And I don't think it's going to get you there. I think you need some additional capabilities on top of that.
Here we go back to the definitions yet again with cloud computing.
That's right.
I'm very curious what the chat room has to say about cloud computing. We've got a lot of new folks in there today and would love to hear what you think cloud computing means. So we also have on the line again Marten Mickos, the CEO of Eucalyptus Systems. Marten, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think these numbers are accurate in terms of the number of IT organizations planning private clouds?
Well, I think we're so early in the market that numbers don't matter that much yet. What's important is what kind of experimentations companies do and what kind of deployments. And the most interesting deployments are far and few between, but they, on the other hand, they are very interesting.
Okay, fair enough point. I want to get into another big player today, Salesforce. We've talked a lot about Chatter here on the show before, and now they have Chatter on mobile platforms. So it's supporting iPhone, iPad, Android, and BlackBerry. I'm very happy about that for those of you who know what kind of phone I use. So Chatter's a real-time collaboration platform, and it's actually really exploded since it was first released to the public 3 months ago. I believe it's been adopted by 25,000 companies, with 25% of Salesforce's client base actually using the platform. So pretty darn good numbers since it first launched. The mobile version is letting users monitor their Chatter feeds. That includes posts from colleagues and alerts from different applications, as well as status updates and comments and that sort of thing in terms of conversations from their devices. So what I'm curious about with this, with Salesforce and with Chatter, just real-time collaboration, are we looking at moving away from the desktop computing space and more to mobile devices at this point, Dave?
Yeah, I think we are. I think the mobile devices are basically taking over a lot faster than I think people thought they would.
Yeah.
Everybody's carrying around iPads now. Samsung has a tablet computing that's coming out that has all kinds of cloud features in it. It's going to run the Android operating system, and we're going to leave our desktops behind. So, we're going to look at these devices going forward, and that's the way in which we view the cloud. So supporting these devices, if you're a cloud provider, is going to be on the critical path. Obviously, Salesforce saw this coming a long time ago, and that's why they moved in this space. So kudos for them. Chatter's a hit, and Salesforce continues to be a hit. So I think this is the way the market's going to drive.
And then they're also touting this as obviously part of Cloud 2.0 in terms of, collaboration, social collaboration and whatnot. Yet another buzz term thrown in there just a little bit. Marten, what do you think? Do you think that it's important for cloud providers to really be thinking about mobile?
Absolutely. I think overall cloud computing is, you could say, it's the last farewell to the client-server era. And the whole client-server paradigm is going away. So the notion of a desktop, which is the client, and then one server serving, it's just outdated. And today you have clouds that serve the applications, and the applications and the users can be anywhere. And most notably, human beings will have many internet-connected devices for each person, and then there will be devices that don't even have human users, that are buildings or vehicles or something.
That's a very good point. I hadn't thought about that before. We actually have someone asking in the chat room, Johnny Levitt is saying, has anyone used WhatsApp.com? Dave, have you heard of that?
Yeah, I have. I haven't used it personally, but I have. I heard some people leverage it, and it's one of those growing fast applications that are starting to pick up steam in the mobile space.
Great. Well, maybe we will snag them for a future episode.
Absolutely.
Now, time to put you on the hot seat, Dave, of course. You know, your weekly post, The Selfish Agenda Behind Private Clouds. I love your headlines. I love them. You're saying the real reason HP and IBM are pushing for private cloud computing is to protect their market share. Quite a bold statement there. So, and the theme from VMworld is to run, don't walk to the private cloud. So expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, in other words, we just talked about the stats that came out of VMworld in terms of interest in private cloud computing, and that's continuing, and it's growing like crazy, perhaps even growing faster relatively than the public cloud space. And it will probably do so for 2011 as people jump into cloud computing and put their baby toe in private cloud and then move up to the public cloud as they start to drive forward. Well, the point of the post, and ultimately, is the fact that the larger guys who are pushing a lot of their existing base into private cloud computing are doing so for their own selfish reasons. And this isn't going to be news to them or news to even people who buy their technology, because you got to remember they've made their money over the years in the data centers. They sold storage, they sold compute power, they sold hardware, they sold software, those sorts of things. I'm talking about IBM and HP, all the big guys in the space. So ultimately, they're trying to keep that market share, and therefore they're not going to push their existing customer base into the public cloud space. They're not going to push them onto Amazon. They're going to try to push them to the things in which they're selling, the hardware and the software base. So they're trying to protect their market share by moving people into the private cloud space. There's nothing sinister about that. They're not deceiving anybody. I just want to make sure that everybody understands that that is the motivation behind them.
Martin, what are your thoughts on this one, given that Eucalyptus is about private clouds?
Sure, I completely agree with Dave, but then I would add that you can't solve new problems with old software, which is why in the cloud infrastructure you must develop software from scratch, and you must develop them to be designed for a distributed environment from the get-go. And the old software stacks and software applications just aren't ready for it, and never will be.
Yeah, I think what they're doing is they're answering that. They're coming out with their own kind of cloud-in-a-box solutions, and we're seeing that from folks like HP with their announcement and their Quick Cloud, tongue twister kind of thing. IBM's cloud-in-the-box solutions have been out there from quite some time, and ultimately, they are building some new stuff and some cool stuff, but it's kind of based on their old stuff currently. So to our guest point, ultimately they're going to have to drive into some more newer, more exciting, more innovative directions. And they're not there yet. They're moving that way, but they're not there yet.
Not there yet. Final thought. Do you agree with that too, Martin?
Right, yes. And I think we see it with databases, that we're still working on the old relational databases, and the new NoSQL movement and the other solutions are not mature and ready yet for serving the new needs, but it inevitably will happen over the next 2 years.
2 years. Do you agree with that, Dave? I'm going to just keep bantering back and forth with the two of you.
Yeah. I mean, I think people are going to move aggressively in that space. And within the next 2 years, at the very least. I mean, this whole space is moving faster than I've seen us ever move. And so, not only the hype, but actually the speed in which products are coming to market and the innovation in the space, and that's only going to accelerate in 2011, 2012. We're going to see a ton of technology out there that's going to drive in this direction.
And we're definitely...
Yeah, and Amanda, a correction there. I said a few years, not 2 years.
Oh, okay.
I think it will take 3 or 4, but who knows?
Okay.
I'm glad if it happens fast.
Exactly. I think we all are. Let's move on to another player, Rackspace. Some news there. They're courting cloud computing developers with a plugin for Microsoft Visual Studio. So the tool, it lets all of the 6 million .NET developers, by the way, let's just start off there, lets the 6 million .NET developers easily deploy applications within VS directly to Rackspace's cloud. So this is sort of highlighting the openness, I suppose, of Visual Studio. I mean, why do you think this move is happening with Rackspace, Dave?
I think this is basically them going after the Microsoft audience. So Azure really has been unable to kind of move as quickly as I think they wanted to move. But they're going to catch up pretty quick. And so this is their attempt to lure the .NET developers into their space. So right now, anybody doing .NET, Azure was the easiest glide path for them, and Rackspace is giving them an alternative. And I think from a marketing point of view and from a technological point of view, it's brilliant. And I think Rackspace is going to get that a good deal of .NET developers are going to drive over to them using their tool set.
Yeah, I mean, we had Lynn Langett with Microsoft on the show last week, so I'm very curious to touch base with her about this news because I want to know what the Microsoft camp is going to do about it. Martin, what do you think about this? Do you think that Rackspace will succeed in luring away .NET developers to Rackspace?
I think they will, yes. I think it's important that they get alternatives to Azure, and Azure is a great platform in itself, but still every customer needs alternatives, and that's why it's a good thing.
Okay. Fair enough, fair enough. And the last story I wanted to cover, we've talked a lot about just the cloud computing market, where it's going, how fast it's changing. And we've got another piece here that's talking about there seems to be a healthy cloud computing market. James Urquhart is saying that IT use of the cloud is growing very quickly, and demand for skills to enable that growth is climbing as a result. Now, if you have skills that are related to IT operations, application administration, that sort of thing, or software development, now might be a time to dive into the cloud. So we're talking about running into the private cloud, and now James Urquhart's talking about diving into the cloud. You know, Dave, come on, you want to expand on this one with James.
Yeah, absolutely. And James is spot on. I mean, we've been talking about this for the last couple of shows. Ultimately, there's demand out there for skill sets and people who understand how to build, deploy, manage, operate, and also architect cloud computing. There's so many opportunities right now for people to get into this space and make a career out of cloud computing because it's going to be around for the rest of our lives. It's not going to go away. So you might as well figure it out and figure out your career path and how you're going to leverage this technology. And James basically, I thought he was very conservative in his highlighting of this sort of things, but we're seeing some large inflection points in certain areas. And even though there's been a contraction in the economy over the last couple of years, this area is absolutely exploding. So if you're looking to re-engineer your career in a direction where you're going to have a lot of job security and a lot of exciting things to do and very innovative things to do, then this is the way to go. So I think we're going to see strong growth in the short term, and we're going to see definitely strong growth in the long term around people who are deploying and implementing private clouds, public clouds, understand app development, understand databases in the cloud. All these various niches we're going to drop out of the holistic cloud computing space.
I'm getting some comments in the chat room. Johnny Lovett's saying that there's massive need in the UK specifically. So, all right. If there are any UK companies that you think should be on This Week in Cloud Computing, Johnny Lovett, then put them my way, Amanda@thisweekend.com for cloud computing. Martin, do you agree here? Do you think that it's smart for people to at least get up to speed more so even with the cloud, whether or not they decide to jump into that for a career specifically?
Well, I think people still underestimate it. This might be the biggest shift in IT that we ever will see in our professional careers.
Wow.
So it will be just massive, and it's only beginning now. So sure, it will go up and it will go down, but overall it will expand and it will take over the whole IT sector.
Wow. I like these bold statements from my team today. Thanks, guys.
Our pleasure.
And I did hear ahead of time, Martin, that you do tend to be bold in your statements. So this is a good thing.
Who said that?
A little birdie told me. A little Twitter bird. No,
I was humble and cautious.
Well, on that note, bump, I think it's time for a little musical interlude.
Outhost and provider letting you down. Take a look at managed private clouds from Verticore. They can easily replace your current IT infrastructure and eliminate IT pains, or the cost and hassle of buying and maintaining IT equipment and software. Deliver 100% uptime to end users. Configure and deploy resources in minutes. With Verticore, oh Verticore, you should be using Verticore. Verticore, oh Verticore, you should be using Verticore. Verticore, your private cloud is hosted in an advanced and secure data center. It uses only best-in-class hardware and software and gives you access to scalable bandwidth. Verticore's team of experts monitor and maintain your private cloud 24/7 by 365. Verticore, oh Verticore, you should be using Verticore. Verticore, oh Verticore, you should be using Verticore.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry. Peace. If you're interested in trying Verticore, there's actually a beta that you can get of the vCloud Express, and I've posted that in the chat room for you. We also have 5 beta codes for vCloud Express to give This Week in Cloud Computing fans. So if you tweet thanks to @Verticore for sponsoring This Week in Cloud Computing, then you might just get one of those codes. Use the hashtag TWICC. For those of you just now joining us, you are watching This Week in Cloud Computing, and we are about to chat now with Marten Mickos, the CEO of Eucalyptus Systems. Thank you again for joining us today, Marten.
My pleasure.
So if you would all like to follow Marten on Twitter, his handle is @Marten Mickos. It's MartenMickos. Marten, look out. You're going to have This Week in Cloud Computing fans all over you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Amanda.
You're welcome. So, Marten, you were formerly the chief executive at MySQL, and you took on the role of Eucalyptus CEO in March. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And you made some big waves with that move. I mean, you're definitely known for showing the world how an open source company can successfully monetize, even with giving away some software for free. So, do you want to maybe expand upon what you did with MySQL just a little bit?
I'd be happy to, yes. I'm maybe a different open source fan in the sense that I believe that the best way to serve open source is to make money there. Because when you make money, you can hire more people. You will reward those who produce the code and not just the secondary organizations who make use of it. So I'm a very strong defender of it. But at the same time, it means that we've had to figure out some unorthodox business models to make it work for the open source developers themselves. Mm-hmm. And that, again, has created enormous debate in the open source world. So that's a fun part of it, and I've come to realize that unless you stir up some discussion in the open source world, you're probably not being relevant at all.
Well, you've been at the helm of Eucalyptus Systems for about 6 months now, and you've definitely done some stirring. So we'll get into that a little bit. This is great. Now, Eucalyptus itself began as an open source project at UC Santa Barbara. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes. It was an NSF-funded project that started 3 years ago, mm-hmm. and then at one point they realized it was just successful beyond expectations, and mm-hmm. they spun it out and set up a company, and UC Santa Barbara is now a shareholder in our company.
Oh, excellent. Okay. Now, I want you to talk a little bit here about how it went from being this open source project and then how Eucalyptus started this open core business model. Can you expand on that just a little bit?
Sure. So first, the PhD team that built it, they built an open source platform, mm-hmm. which still is an open source platform. You can download it anytime you like from our website, and you get it from other places as well.
Right.
And then for the business purposes, we are additionally developing features that commercial enterprises will need and that they are ready to pay money for. So that's mm-hmm. how we make sure that the software is available under the GPL license freely for anybody to download, while at the same time we have a revenue stream so we can grow the business and we
Absolutely.
Can take up competition with old closed source businesses who are trying to enter the cloud market.
Okay. Now, not everyone who watches This Week in Cloud Computing is familiar with all the terms we use on here, so can you explain what GPL is?
So GPL is the most popular open source license. It
okay.
stands for the General Public License. Was created by the Free Software Foundation a long time ago, and that's what the license that Linux comes under, MySQL, okay. and also Eucalyptus.
Okay, so we've covered the business model slightly. Now let's talk on a bigger scale about the opportunity that exists when you intersect open source with cloud computing overall. What's the real opportunity that exists there?
So generally, I would say if you take an even bigger view on things, you could say that all infrastructure software today is built on open source. So it's not just the cloud infrastructure, but whatever is deep in the infrastructure and powering the internet or the mobile world of today, you mm-hmm. find open source in it. And Eucalyptus is one example of that. And there are actually other open source projects as well in the same space that are open source and are making good progress in infrastructure cloud software.
Dave, I want you to chime in here. Marten's saying that everything has a piece of open source in it. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've been a CTO 4 times, and the first thing you do when you build a product is you go look at other people's code, what I call OPC, other people's code. And
OPC.
OPC, and you go grab it and you get it in there because it allows you to go faster. You have to look at the license. You have to be very careful, legalities behind it, but you never build something from scratch. It's always going to have components in it that are open source. And I defy you to find products today that are out on the market, even some very proprietary products that don't have significant subsystems that are based on open source software.
Jay Praz in the chat room is saying that you should trademark OPC, by the way. Well, let's jump back over to Marten. Marten, Eucalyptus just closed a $20 million round of financing this summer that was led by New Enterprise Associates. Now, what's the total capital that you've raised now, and also what are you planning to do with that money?
So we've raised 25.5 million in total, and with most of that still unused and intact. And
nice.
we have it there for expanding our business. So we have a
good runway.
We have a long runway. We have an aggressive hiring plan for this year because we're building out business services, training, consulting, the marketing team, and so on. And that's what we need the money for.
Great, great. Would you consider raising any additional money beyond this, or do you think this is it?
Well, that remains to be seen. But we have money for many, many years to go. So it won't be a topic on our agenda for the next 4 years.
Right. Gotcha. Fair enough. I am very, very curious about your take specifically on Nimbula, the open source cloud operating system that was created by the developers of Amazon EC2, that cloud service. Is Nimbula something that you're keeping close tabs on? Is it something that you're a little leery of? I mean, what's the take internally at Eucalyptus about Nimbula?
I'm very impressed by the team, but did you say open source? I don't think they're open source.
They're claiming to be.
Are they?
Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
And the initial, I mean, at least, maybe not now, but when we were first reporting on Nimbula, when it first was a hint, perhaps that's changed. Fill us in.
Well, that's great, because the impression I got was that they were not open source.
Oh, good.
And everybody was asking, why would you build a new company without doing it open source? So that's very welcome. And, you know, they are joining an illustrious group of cloud infrastructure startups. You know, we were the first ones. There's OpenNebula, Cloud.com, Apiquo, OpenQRM, and now Nimbula. Great teams, great funding, you know, with great vision. So it will be a very exciting market for all of us to be in.
Right. Okay. And then I would also like to talk a bit more about version 2.0 of the open source platform, specifically because you directly address the issue of scalability here. And scalability is something that people have questioned slightly with Eucalyptus, especially when it comes to very, very large deployments with, say, a NASA. So I appreciate, you know, your directness that you've had in the press, you know, with this specifically. So would you elaborate a little bit on the scalability issues and what you're doing with version 2.0?
Sure. So we always designed our product to be highly, highly scalable, and for every new release, we have implemented more of that functionality, made sure it scales more. Let me note on NASA, and there's sort of a commentary going around on that, but it's usually just the same comment going in the echo chamber. NASA still runs in production all the installations that they have with us. They haven't taken us out of anything. The USAspending.gov website runs on Eucalyptus, and we are yet to find a cloud that is larger than what we can scale to. But scaling is a multifaceted thing. It relates to throughput, it relates to latency, so there are many aspects of it. But nevertheless, we are very committed to improving scalability in every new release, and in this 2.0 we definitely did it. We are making sure that the different functions of our cloud platform run on different nodes so that they don't interfere with each other when it comes to performance and scalability. And then we're just tuning the heck out of the code that we have and making sure that it lives up to the design that we originally made.
Right.
And that's why it's more scalable without compromising throughput or latency.
Gotcha, gotcha. And now version 2.0 of the open source platform is also bundled with Ubuntu, right? And what's the significance there?
That's true. So we have a long and good relationship with Canonical, and they have a version of Ubuntu called the Ubuntu Enterprise Cloud, which essentially includes Eucalyptus. So if you go to them, you'll get everything in one package. There's Ubuntu, there's Eucalyptus, there's an easy install, a good management tool. So that could actually be a faster path to cloud if you're starting from scratch.
All right, faster path to the cloud. All right. Now, what are your thoughts specifically on the OpenStack project? And when people ask you, what's different between what they're doing with OpenStack versus Eucalyptus, what do you typically say?
So OpenStack is a great initiative that was started by Rackspace, where they open sourced some of their own software. It's targeted at very, very large clouds and public clouds primarily, which is what Rackspace is running. So there's a slightly different technical direction, but it's open source software just as Eucalyptus is, and for us it means that we can make use of parts of it or all of it, and we can contribute code to it, which we are looking into now.
So I was just going to ask that.
Yeah, so I think going forward, you will, as a user, it again means more choice, and it may mean combinations that could be useful for certain customers.
Gotcha. Okay. You've also had some new hires lately. I think even today, one was just announced, a rather large one. You have Red Hat veteran Saeed, I can't say his last name, Zouani, is that correct?
Zouani, yes.
Zouani, yes, well, Amanda got that right.
I can tell you that every single hire to Eucalyptus is very, very important and equally important. And sure, some people have bigger job titles, but every single individual matters to the success of the company.
Absolutely.
And we're very happy to have Saeed join as head of sales. He comes from Red Hat, where he led a vertical market there and was in charge of over 100 million in annual sales.
Wow.
And now he will build out a similar sales operation for us.
I'm assuming probably enterprise focused?
Yes, so we're selling very much to the enterprises, but we also sell to modern online web companies, typical Silicon Valley companies.
Okay.
So sure, they are enterprises, but they are modern enterprises.
All right. I'm getting a question in the chat room from Hypebeats saying, what do you guys think about Windows 7? That's a general question, but Dave, do you want to answer this one?
Yeah, it's kind of from left field. Windows 7, go Windows 7. It's a good operating system. It's probably not germane to what they do at Eucalyptus at the time. I mean, but I guess you guys support Windows. Kind of reading over the product system. So I guess, do you utilize any kind of the specialized subsystems that come along with Windows 7 when you execute and try to scale your system?
Yeah, so first of all, I can say I like Windows 7 because it's better than its predecessor. And on the Eucalyptus platform, we do support Windows images and applications, so you can run Windows on it. And over time, we'll probably support more parts of the Microsoft software stack, including the hypervisor. We haven't done so yet, but I see it coming in the roadmap.
Right.
And I'll just throw this out there. We were asked last week, or did ask last week, is the operating system dead? But you still need an operating system. Anyway, back to the discussion. Marten, at Eucalyptus, you also just recently partnered with Jamcracker. I like that name, by the way, Jamcracker, to offer self-service infrastructure clouds. Now, why that partnership? I'm assuming, because you can now procure Eucalyptus-based infrastructure through Jamcracker to easily set up private and hybrid clouds. Is that correct?
That's a perfect description of it. And more broadly, again, we are very actively partnering with companies for a number of reasons. One is that cloud as a space is varied and nuanced, and there are different needs among different customers. So we need different partnerships depending on whether they look for ease of deployment, whether they look for fast deployment, good management, powerful scalability. And that's why we are doing the partnership with Jamcracker is the newest one. We're very happy about it. And you saw a week earlier we announced one with NewScale and RPath and Momentum SI.
Wow, that's quite a few.
So, hopefully we'll do many more of those, and our customers are loving them because it makes it easier for them to choose a cloud solution and to know what to do, because this is a new space for many.
Oh, okay. So if people would like to partner with Eucalyptus, who should they get in touch with?
They should just send an email to me, marten@eucalyptus.com.
You're actually giving out your email address. Why, thank you.
I always do. And on my Twitter profile, I have my private email address, so
Wonderful.
I'm not afraid of email.
Marten Mickos at Eucalyptus Systems is very accessible, folks. Marten, what is the general strategy for Eucalyptus Systems moving forward, or perhaps even from now through the end of the year? What's the focus?
So we're very focused on the core engine, so you could say boringly focused on it. So there's sort of an attraction in going outside of our core focus and doing all kinds of other things, but we're pretty focused on just making sure that the engine keeps evolving, it scales very well, has enormous throughput, and that it serves customers. So lots of engineers just doing that work. It's long-term work. It takes time for new features to be developed, but we believe it's essential in success in this space. And then over time, we will do more fancy features and bells and whistles around it. But right now, we're just focused on the cloud platform that we have.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. And what would you say are some of the main hurdles that anyone looking to use open source and the cloud together? What are the main hurdles that exist there right now?
I think there's a learning curve for everybody, meaning you have to learn a new paradigm. You have to think about provisioning differently, because suddenly you can provision much faster.
True.
But you also have to be much more careful in how you configure your data center and how you take care of security and those things. So there's more thinking needing ahead of time, but then once you're live, it's much easier. The ongoing management is much easier, and you can scale your data center without necessarily hiring new people.
Which is very useful and saves money. Dave, do you have any final questions for Marten?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I found in a lot of the public cloud providers, we talked about the movement into private cloud, and almost all of them out there have a private cloud version. You know, even Azure has an appliance that they sell now, and everybody except for Amazon. So I noticed that you guys basically support the AWS API. So would you consider yourself the private cloud version of Amazon? Is that the elevator description of how you're selling Eucalyptus right now? Or are you going to be kind of very separate and distinct, even though you're leveraging the same API?
I think that's the good definition. I would love to have it. Of course, Amazon, they have their business and we have our business, but we believe we are very complementary and a positive thing for Amazon, because we enable corporations to use the same API in-house, so they develop skills and tools that work on Eucalyptus, and those can then be used on Amazon's cloud. So there's a natural synergy going on there. And we didn't pick the Amazon API just out of the blue. There were two very important reasons. One is that just technically our core engineering team found that their API was designed for ultimate scale, and they felt it was the best implementation around from a just purely scientific perspective. And secondly, it was becoming, and perhaps today already is, an industry standard. So by adhering to their API, we make it easier for companies to just get going. So that's why we've chose it. But going forward, when other APIs emerge and become important and dominant, we will support them too, because we have the ability to add more APIs to our product.
So I noticed that your security model within the product is very SOA-like. So you borrow from a lot of the service-oriented architecture security standards, such as AWS security, and you're using that via SOAP. Is that going to be a model that you continue to grow going forward, using identity-based systems and different kinds of existing open security standards that have been developed over the years around service-oriented architecture, around the complex distributed system that you guys are trying to build?
I think that's the only path to success, in that these are ultimately very complex systems where everything relates to everything. And so you need to follow standards and follow the de factos of the industry to fit in. And sure, we do customizations for customers, but of course we would like to minimize the customization work. And that we do by relying on standard solutions, standard concepts, that we have, and standard architectures in the product. And that's also what makes the product so modular that you can actually and in reality scale.
What about folding the code that people are developing out there in the open source world back into the product? What process do you leverage for doing that?
So you mean when people contribute code to us?
That's right.
Yeah. So we're very thankful for contributions. We get, bug reports, bug fixes. We get patches and other stuff that are contributed in. We have the same principle as the Free Software Foundation. So we ask people to sign over copyright to us, which means that we can take legal responsibility for the code and we can give customers indemnification, and then we put them into the product. And sometimes it's even a discussion between the contributor and us. If it's a significant contribution, we will pay money for it. We'll be happy to compensate for the benefit we and all the users are getting. And it's hard work to bring in contributions. So we have people specifically appointed to reviewing the code and making sure it fits in and that it is follows the design architecture of our product.
Thanks.
Great. Well, any final thoughts from you, Marten, that we have not covered here? I know we've grilled you quite a bit today.
Yeah, you have wonderful questions. I'm very impressed with the questions, and I'm following the comments there on the chat window. I didn't see any new questions there, so I think...
Well, thank you so much. Probably a good place to wrap it up then. Thank you so much for joining us, Marten. Again, Marten Mickos, CEO of Eucalyptus Systems. You can follow him on Twitter at Marten Mickos, where he also posts his private email address for you. So everyone, make sure you look it up and try it out. So with that, I think I just heard a clap of thunder in the studio.
Shield Maiden!
Yes?
Ragnarok is upon us once again!
That?
Oh, never mind. Just go with it.
Okay.
Storm on demand, Storm on demand. Storm on demand is an infrastructure as a service, cloud computing platform that is powerful enough to replace dedicated servers. A proprietary cloud platform designed by Liquid Web, one of the largest web hosting providers with over 12 years of experience. It is easier to use and less expensive than Amazon EC2. Features include server setup in minutes, easy scaling, backup and restoration capabilities, and pay-as-you-go utility-style billing. Options include cPanel, Fantastico, Ubuntu, Debian, CentOS, fully managed servers, private networking, and swords like this, and little guys that we do not have in this commercial, but it doesn't matter, because this is cooler. Storm on Demand can be found at stormondemand.com. At Storm on Demand. Ragnarok be damned. Storm on Demand. If you do not get Storm on Demand, I will come to your house with my sword and make you get it.
You guys are headbanging. This one's Mark. This one's Lon. Mark is the CEO of This Weekend. Lon is the creative director. There you go. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us for episode 29 of This Week in Cloud Computing. Had a wonderful guest, Marten Mickos, CEO of Eucalyptus Systems, so make sure you check them out. And thank you, of course, to my trusty co-host, Dave Linthicum, as always. Thank you for putting up with me.
Thank you. I'll talk to you in a week, and I'll see you in 2 weeks, Amanda.
I know. Dave will be joining us in studio in 2 weeks, so look for that. That's going to be fun. He's going to be in the hot seat in the studio. And, of course, please thank our wonderful, wonderful sponsors at Verticore, that's VIRTACORE, at Storm on Demand, and at NetDNA CDN. Just tweet out thank you for thank you for This Week in Cloud Computing, hashtag TWICC. They make this show possible. If you have ideas for the show, send them to me, Amanda, at thisweekend.com, or you can also send them to pitch@thisweekend.com. But until then, be sure to join us again next week, same cloud time, same cloud channel. I am your host for This Week in Cloud Computing, Amanda Coulong. See you next time.